All right. I would like to call our previous meeting back to order, right? And I will do a roll call. Councillor Wright,
I'm here.
Councillor Knack,
Good afternoon.
Councillor Principe,
Good afternoon.
Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Paquette, Councillor Tang,
Hi, everyone.
Councillor Hamilton,
Hi, I'm here.
Councillor Rutherford,
Hello, I'm here.
Councillor Salvador,
Good afternoon.
Councillor Cartmel,
Good afternoon.
Councillor Rice,
Good afternoon.
Councillor Jans, Councillor Stevenson. So Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Jans.
Is Councillor Paquette here, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councillor Paquette is here. Okay, and we were on the Orange Hub.
Sorry, we don't have Councillor Paquette, just for the records purposes?
Well, I thought he said, Councillor Paquette, are you there? So we're missing Councillor Paquette, we're missing Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Jans. Yeah, they might be in the old, can you check if they're not in the old meeting? Because that was a different link.
Can you just give us 2 seconds?
Yeah, we'll give a minute. Yeah. It's kind of weird chairing a meeting and sitting by myself and looking to the chair, see if people are here. It just feels so odd.
We have Councillor Stevenson and we have Councillor Jans, and we're just waiting for Councillor Paquette, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so Councillor Stevenson is there, Councillor Jan is there. We're waiting for Councillor Paquette. So, Madam Clerk, Councillor Stevenson and Councillor Stevenson has the first round on this one, and I assumed that I know she talked about having a alternative recommendation or motion on this. I assumed that she would have moved that in first round, but she did not. But now I find out that she does have a motion. So Councillor Stevenson wants to move something instead of the recommendation, and I'm open to, what would the term be? I'm just lost for words. Withdraw my mover of my brain is not working. I moved this motion, right?
You moved the recommendation.
I moved the
in report,
recommendation,
yeah.
and I thought because I thought no one else has any alternative to this, so I moved this, right? So.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I didn't have the opportunity even to ask question for the first round regarding this project. I don't know.
Yes, I'll
when
come
should
to
be...
I'll come to that in a minute, Councillor Councillor Rice. Yeah. Yeah, but that's why I moved it. So it's on the floor. We can vote on it and then go to Councillor Stevenson's subsequent if this fails.
So councillors, so just for clarity,
Yeah.
and I won't want to speak for any councillor, but there are other alternatives to do the complete opposite of what your motion is, which
Yeah.
is absolutely okay. We just can't have both of your motions on the floor at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So if you want to withdraw your motion and it's agreeable to the assembly, we can just take it off the floor right now and start again.
Yeah. Is that agreeable to the assembly? Okay. I will withdraw it. And good. All right. Okay, now I will go to this. So no motion on the floor at this time. So, and I'll go to Councillor Rice now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have a few questions regarding this project. The first question, it's my understanding the project is reconstruction of parkade. I just want to get some information and on the history and for the project. So how much money we spend it, and when is the project phase 1 finished? Is there any time gap between phase 1 and phase 2? And so what is the rationale right now and for the phase 2 to restart and for this reconstruction of the project? To administration, thank you.
So Councillor Rice, the phase 1 was completed during the 2015-2018 budget for planning and design, and then construction happened over 2018, 2019, and 2020. At the same time, we started on phase 2 of the rehabilitation, and the project is ready for construction. It has been, like our contractor is mobilizing and will start the work. What's included right now is the demolition of the parkade, and we are holding the funds, as you know, for the reconstruction, which means that that piece of the project will not move forward until a decision by council is made. I hope I answered all your question. If I missed something, please let me know.
Yes, the 2 points. One point is about what expenditures already happened, and in the phase 1, how much cost were already spent.
I will have to validate. It was in the range of around $10 million, and it was spent on other rehabilitation needs across the higher priority elements across the facility. So there was a lot of work done on fire safety, ensuring that the building was brought up to code for the new use, and just general replacement of HVAC, electrical systems, things like that.
Okay, so for the schedule, is that fair to say, and between 2018, because you mentioned the 2015, 2018, between 2018 to now, and we don't have any construction work in place? Or is the construction work is continuing and since that budget cycle?
So they are two distinct projects. And so phase 1 was completed, and this is where it was around 2019 or 2020. And phase 2 was under planning and design, and construction is set to start in 2022.
In 2022. And so for this $14 million, I understand the 2 options presented to City Council, and 1 option is underground park, and 1 is the surface. So I personally, I drove around with that hub, orange hub. So I did see the importance for the parking needs. So for this $14 million, and is a part of option 1, or is a part of, I know for the surface is only $5 million. So I assume it is a option 2, and to reconstruct and for underground parkade. So is that right?
So the current funding, which is estimated at $14 million, is to build an above ground 3-story, naturally kind of ventilated parkade. So it is the current design, which is presented in attachment 1 of the report as the above ground parkade. And that's the cost of $14 million. The underground parkade has an estimated cost of $35 million. And then the surface parking lot is about $5 million. Those are alternatives that are being presented at this time.
Based on a request from council at budget, Councillor Rice. So the project was at council, in front of council at budget, fall budget. And as part of that, council asked us to bring options because of the urgency of the project. We brought them back very quickly so that we could get some certainty on the direction of the project.
I have one more question. I don't think I have enough time. I come back.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Stevenson?
Yes, thank you. As alluded to, I'm hoping to make a motion here. Sorry, if you'll just give me one moment. So the motion I'd like to make is that the 14 million of capital profile 21120340 Orange Hub Phase 2 rehabilitation project continue to be held in abeyance until administration conducts further engagement and reports back to council on alternative redevelopment options for the on-site parking structure, including exploring partnerships with tenants, other nonprofits, or private industry to build a mixed-use residential building with an underground parkade. And that administration develop an interim parking strategy for users of the Orange Hub, including the potential to lease adjacent properties to provide parking. So the purpose of my motion there is really just for us take a step back.
So Councillor,
and really
Councillor Stevenson, just
you
quickly,
need a seconder. Apologies.
Yeah, you need a seconder, but also the motion is not on the screen yet. So I can see the motion, is it?
Yeah, we're just waiting for
Yeah.
a seconder, and
Yeah.
then we'll put it up on the
Second
screen.
by
I did second it.
Councillor Knack. Second by Councillor Knack. Here we go. Now go ahead.
Thank you, sorry. So my intent in this motion here is really just to provide us with time to step back and think much more holistically about what we can do on this site. So I appreciate the need to be providing parking for tenants on site. I think in the long term there will be a place for parking, but it's really thinking strategically about making the most out of every asset and every opportunity we have. $14 million is a significant city investment, and I think there are just great opportunities to leverage that with partnerships from other parties, just to make more out of what this project could be. I think the area is, in terms of alignment with our city plan, really looking for that more multi-use, mixed-use, higher intensity. And I don't think it needs a 30-story tower, a 4-story, 6-story. The other part I'm really excited about is just the opportunity to collaborate with some of the tenants that are in Orange Hub and help advance their visions and goals for their organizations. Bringing housing, student housing, family housing onto that site, I think represents a really great opportunity there. As the city of Edmonton too, I think we just need to be showing great leadership and really demonstrating the types of projects that we want to see in our city and that move towards our city plan objectives. So happy to take any questions on that and appreciate the Assembly's consideration.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor, so please limit your questions to the motion only. Councillor Paquette.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. To administration, just taking a look at this, my read is that this is asking for an information report on possible redevelopment, and in the meantime to lease adjacent properties to provide the parking that the initial thrust of the project was going to provide. Is that your reading as well? That is the way we read it, is to work with the Orange Hub, which has been active work that's been underway with Mr. Jevney's team to find different parking options for Orange Hub, because the parkade does need to be demolished. And then as part of that, I look at this to see if the first part would be to sort of go out to industry to see if there's a partner that's willing to join us in conducting or being part of what's being asked here, and then bringing that back to council for consideration. Okay, and you may not be able to answer this question. Maybe you can. But as far as our efforts to build housing, is this an ideal spot? Is this if, like, all things being equal, is this a place where we would say strategically, this is a very good use of our resources to provide that here? The tough question, Councillor Paquette. I'll do my best to identify. This might overlap with
the folks who are doing housing, and I'm not sure they're here today, so I apologize for putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I think what I would say is that the opportunity to build mixed-use residential buildings, if we're getting directed to do that by council, does have a process to identify sort of best approach. So I think part of what we probably have to do with this work is to assess is this the best location versus other locations that are within the vicinity of this area.
And that's what the report would look at, and then you would come back to us to let us know the feasibility.
Yeah, I think one of the flags I have is that takes time, that takes partnership, that takes capital assembly by other partners or additional budget assembly by council. And so this won't be
A quick turnaround.
a quick turnaround in terms of meeting the needs of the Orage Hub tenants.
Right. And in the
I think-
meantime, we've got the build of the LRT clock ticking. But the alternative here is to lease adjacent property. So I'm just wondering if when this report comes back, if it'll cover like the cost there. The thing I'm worried about too is just like the delay cost. So just wondering if you can speak to that.
Well, every capital project does come with, if delayed, escalation, and we've experienced some of them recently. Coronation, Lewis Farms. So I think essentially what we're looking at here is we're rescoping the project to accommodate this potential use, and with that will come escalation impacts associated with the original program if through this exercise it's identified that that maybe this isn't the appropriate go forward. So it's tough for me to answer, Councillor Paquette, because as I mentioned earlier, I think Councillor Tang asked the question about what would we have done differently had we known that this was the desire when we were scoping this project out. We'd be in a different situation. So that's why I'm struggling with sort of what would be the impact of this delay.
No,
I think the impact is to the users because they'll be without a parking structure for longer if we go down this path.
Yeah.
Thank
And the question council has before us is this the best use of our funds strategically? All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Councillor Jans.
I'm wanting to speak in support to it, so should I wait until that time?
Yeah, I think let us go through the questions, Councillor Jans first.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rice on the motion. Questions on the motion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Specific, this is related to my third question. And based on recommendation provided by administration, and we do have that uncertainty to build underground pocket to needs and for the user, and then in terms of ART will be open, and in terms before ART or after ART. And because the capacity of the site only allowed like maximum like 200 stool for the pocket. And if this motion talk about $14 million and still holds and come with the option, and can you give me more information about for this motion to going forward, and even for build this mixed use residential building with underground parkade? I think that $14 million will not be only like the reflected, probably like extra financial implication. And can you give me a little bit of information on that for this motion?
Sure. If that was a question to me as the mover, my intent is really that 14 million that's been allocated is used to leverage other partners' investment. So I would see, the offer that I think we're going out to the community with is, hey, we've got this land, we've got $14 million. what we need out of this is 200 parking stalls. What can you bring to the table and what do you want to see here? I think that opens up a lot of really exciting opportunities. It's a great offer. I think that there will be interested parties who want to see development here, and I would look to them to bring that capital and the financing that would be needed for those additional pieces.
Okay, thank you for that information. And then I would like to echo the Councillor Paquet question. And is this the best use for this $14 million plus? We may need extra investment. And so is that best spot, best site, and for us to continue for this motion and for the project? And specifically based on the scope of Orange Hub project, my understanding is this Orange Hub are used for the community and for so many nonprofit organizations for the arts activities. And so when I went there, I actually found it's very difficult to find a parking spot. And if you look at the map they provided, and then from that perspective, I don't want our community lose that opportunity to have the space to go to organize some activities, events, actually benefit for our community. So I understand, I appreciate your attention to bring this motion, but I do have concern, and we have this great space and for us to use and then to support our community. And why we need to change this and to the different scope of the project. I just need a bit of concern for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Knack.
Thank you. Just a few quick questions, and I'll register to speak separately. Just wanted to check, and I think Councillor Stevenson answered this in her response to Councillor Rice, but from administration's perspective, I mean, I know one of the fears we have of potentially going and not advancing this right away is that cost escalation. But I think, as Councillor Stevenson mentioned, one of the potential opportunities is if there are willing partners to develop immediately across the street from LRT, well, those partners would potentially be the ones to put in the money. I mean, right, that is a very real possibility of something like this. Is that fair to say?
Is that a question to administration or to?
Yeah, because I heard Councillor Stevenson suggest that, but I just wouldn't mind from administration's perspective your thought on that as well.
It's provided in the motion, private industry, so that would be our intention, is to engage somehow to see if there's interest to partner in this. Not sure what that negotiation is going to look like, other than identifying that if this passes, the city of Edmonton has $14 million on the table to support it.
Yeah.
And a need for a parking structure.
Absolutely. Yeah, which would be a critical part of any discussion. And that leads me just into my other series of questions around the interim parking piece. And I'll speak to this later, but the common theme I heard from the tenants was their biggest concern was not whether we went ahead and built a new parkade right away or did this work. It's that in either scenario, they have felt that there has not been an adequate interim solution in place. And so I guess I just wanted to get a better understanding of what work we are doing. I appreciate this motion actually specifically asks for that, but that's actually the biggest concern I've heard from all of the tenants as the councillor for the area.
Yeah, Councillor Knack, we've been trying to secure interim parking during construction, trying to lease any of the adjacent lots, and we've had no success so far. So we are without an interim parking strategy. So the longer, unless we could secure a lot, it'll be simply neighborhood parking, street level parking until we are able to. And that's a concern we heard from the residents, from the tenants, from the business association. So the need to secure an interim solution is quite critical.
Is without getting into too much detail, is it just a pricing concern? Is that the issue? Because there are many lots that are underused right now within a very short distance.
Yeah, I think in some of the negotiations, that's a concern for sure.
Okay. So we're getting held up on the price piece. Well, hopefully those folks will realize that their lots currently, there's a lot that's currently fenced and empty doing nothing. Chances are it would make more financial sense for them to take some money versus none. But appreciate this would provide that further direction. So I think we need to have that. Anyway, I'll wait to speak to it once last quick question. Was the parking structure we were thinking of doing, you mentioned bike parking, was it going to be secured bike parking? Or did we have that conversation yet?
Apologies, Councillor, I don't have that information, but I'll see if I can get it.
Not a huge deal, but I just wanted to double check. Okay, great. I'll click back on to speak to it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Councillor Tang.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the mover for putting this on the table. Question to you, to the mover. Kind of along the question I had earlier. So for this motion, are you specifically looking at kind of what's possible on this very specific parking site? Or would you also be open to other options like converting empty spaces within the building, or even would you see, you know, the sort of the reimagining of some of those city-owned options that administration has identified in a nearby community as part of this work?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think for me, it's a both and proposition. So I recognize there's some other parcels of land that may become available through the LRT construction process, that they'll be declared surplus at the end of that, or remnant parcels from that construction. For me, just the fact remains that we have this parcel. We're investing $14 million in it, and it is an ideal location basically for anything other than just parking. I mean, I think all of our city plan policies are very clear that we want to see mixed use around transit. I mean, this is adjacent to an LRT stop. We want to be seeing transit-oriented development. You know, parking can be a supportive component of that, but in all the policies that I've been part of, that I believe is the very strong intent of city plan and other supporting documents, that the intent is to have development around transit stations. And if we as a city aren't demonstrating that leadership on this parcel, I think that really undermines the broader work and city building vision that we're trying to achieve. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Councillor Tang, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. And so when you talk about leveraging other investment, you're thinking private developer investment, correct?
It could be private, again, also nonprofits. So there are a number of organizations. Again, when I'm wearing my previous affordable housing hat, I mean, I think this proposition of land and $14 million is incredibly attractive. There's opportunities for organizations that have capital, plus can access financing to build on that site. I think it is possible that it could work with private industry as well. Again, some of the tenants, so Yellowhead Tribal Council, they have potential capital resources as well, and may be really keen to invest in a project. Something to be explored, but I think that opportunity and potential is there.
And I was going to say, you know, you don't have to disclose any names or specific conversations you've already had, but like in your current role, not speaking to your previous experience, obviously you have, you know, ample, but I'm just wondering, have you been having some of those preliminary conversations and to assess that interest then beyond the Yellowhead Tribal College?
No, honestly, no. Just that was the initial conversation that I had. But certainly, I mean, I don't want to make this motion and walk away. I would intend to work really closely with administration, if desired, to share some ideas and contacts that I think could be good starting points.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, and maybe just for example, I know that the city has been in conversation with the Edmonton Mennonite Center for Newcomers for a number of years about finding a refugee and asylum seeker welcoming building that would include housing and health services. Again, the search has been for land, for city-owned land. So again, that's an opportunity I could see exploring, but haven't spoken to them at all about this specific case.
Right, but potentially with those leads, things could line up pretty quickly. Okay, I have 1 more minute, so I want to direct it to administration. If you can just, okay, so I'm just want to try to understand the timeline. So the West Line is going to open at the end of 2027, correct?
That's the current schedule, yeah.
Okay, and so between now and then, we have around 5 to 6 years with not this motion, but the previous one, with the parking option, it will be, you know, we'll have around 4 years remaining until the LRT actually opens up. But with something like this on the table, and I've already asked that question around the implications of the delay. Do you feel like you can still line up any kind of potential, development with that LRT opening timeline?
Is your question, could we have construction completed before the LRT opens?
Right. I guess my question is, is that ample time because it feels like it is to me.
Yeah, I think it honestly depends on what would come back from an interest perspective and then what sort of deal could be worked out. Ultimately, council would have to approve the deal that would potentially come forward because there is city capital dollars identified and it's city property. So to me, I think it's just a function of how quickly either not-for-profits or private industry can assemble and take advantage of this. And at this point in time, I don't have a definitive answer on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Wright.
Hi, thank you. I guess for administration, the demolition is going to take place in Q1, no matter what information we have before us or any community engagement is completed. Is that right?
So the parkade is at the end of its life, and so we will be taking measures to either secure it or to do the demolition as planned. Yes.
So, and when do you feel this information, this from the motion, could be provided to us?
I'm not sure at this point in time. I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking about it, envisioning an RFP, envisioning some engagement to see if there's interest. So it'll probably be beyond the decision point of demolition.
Okay. So it's not going to do anything to delay to delay demolition, but it'll just delay.
Yeah, we would
the
strongly
initial construction of what was recommended. Okay.
We would not permit delaying, if I can say that. I don't even know if I can, but we would not permit delaying the parkade or delaying the demolition of the parkade structure because of the safety issues.
Okay.
So the work that was underway around temporary parking for the users is, as Mr. Jevney said, active work. We would probably be, if this motion passes, we would probably be looking at extending the lease or the parking arrangements for a longer period of time, because we do think that this will add a couple of years to the time frame that was identified originally with parkade replacement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Salvador, can you take a chair? Can I take the chair, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So a couple of questions. One is that once the demolition takes place and there's no decision to rebuild the parking, how would the access be provided to the building from the access that is currently provided to the parkade?
That's a great question. We will have to review that as part of the next steps on this project. There are some consideration of access having to be modified for the LRT construction already, and so that would be a challenge. There are also numerous evacuation, so emergency exits that feed in onto the parkade, and so we'll look at extending the plans that were being considered for the construction to something that would be more permanent.
And all those things that would have to be done in the absence of having a new parkade would be kind of semi-permanent, right? Because you don't know what will happen. It will take 2 years, 3 years for anyone to come up with a plan to build something on this.
That's correct.
Okay. And there will absolutely be additional cost or no?
Again, hard to say. I think there'll be additional operating costs on the basis of the parking strategy for users of Orange Hub. But from a capital perspective, until we go through this, again, if this passes, if we go through this work and find out what's the best deal, we won't know what the cost implications are.
Yeah. And the cost of the interim parking, that's going to be ongoing operating cost as well, beyond the time frame that you had built in to accommodate the construction time period.
That's right.
Okay. And then there's cost related to potential inflation of whatever happens. If we have, say, 3 years from now, you don't find anybody, and then you start rebuilding the parking as planned now, that's 3 years of inflation added to the cost.
Well, our hope, Mr. Mayor, if this passes, is that we would be back. Again, not sure the timeframes that we would need for an RFP like this, but we would be back this year with some responses on that, and then it would be another decision point for council.
Okay.
So if council chooses to proceed in a direction where we're taking the actions identified in option 1,
Yeah.
the escalation you would see would just be the additional time to carry out that work. And if it was to revert back to the original recommendation, it would essentially be this year's escalation, which would be not too significant.
Okay. My last question is around resources, internal resources. So what would have to drop from your do list over the next 6 months that you would not do in order to accommodate this additional work?
It's a great question. I haven't actually assessed that. But I would think this would be a project manager's, part of a project manager's role in terms of the resources, in terms of offsetting what they would be working on. I think we'd have to take that back and assess that. But this will mean additional public engagement, stakeholder engagement, which is additional resources, and we'd have to figure out how to make that work. I couldn't give you a specific, but it is certainly additional rework based on the path that this project has been set previously.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I will take the chair back. Sorry. I won't take the chair back yet. I will move the second round.
Second.
Great. Let's vote on second round.
It's coming. Councillor Jans? We have all the votes, Mr. Mayor, or sorry, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Display the vote. That is carried. Let's go to second round.
And I will take the chair back. And the second round is first one, Councillor Jans is to speak, Councillor Neck is to speak, Councillor Paquette to speak or
just
questions?
a few quick questions, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So to the mover, let's say we find a partner, they want to build. Is this, I just need clarification. They're building all with their money, no city money. Is that right?
I mean, in my most optimistic moments, I think that this could be an opportunity for the city to have significant cost savings. So if we put out an RFP and we say, here's the proposition, and someone comes back and says, hey, if you just give me that land, I'm gonna build this housing. You don't even have to pay me $14 million. I don't know that that's likely, but I guess just my thinking, and it's maybe crude at this point, but we're going to spend $14 million anyways. So why not just spend that $14 million and augment the value, leverage other investment to make it an even greater asset for our community? I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it does. It's getting deja vu. Okay, so about another issue we had before us. Ironically. So to administration, before we ever embarked on this project, did we have some serious interest in this spot for development?
Maybe want to confirm interest in this spot. So I think I'll take us back, and I've raised it before, but I feel compelled to raise it again. Administration's initial recommendation was not to pursue this facility for reasons of the degree of rehab that we were going through, the use, and the potential future uses that could be available in this area. However, council provided direction to purchase this facility. From that point, the focus of our group has been, our collective group, the city, has been to support the users that would be using this facility, which includes providing the renewal and ensuring that their needs are met from a parking perspective or an access perspective. The thinking beyond that has been limited to how do we best support them and how do we maintain our assets. The notion of TOD development is, and Ms. McCabe could probably speak to this much better than I could, is to enable private sector adjacent to the transit infrastructure that we're installing versus the City of Edmonton property being in that space. Understanding that there's also a desire from council to look at opportunities for housing. That wasn't a significant contemplation with this project, to my knowledge, on the basis of what the already sort of planned use for the facility was. I hope I answered your question, Councillor Paquette.
And then some. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you. Is Ms. McCabe on the line? I can't see.
I am, and question about TOD development. Is there interest in the site for TOD development, Councillor Paquette? Is that what you'd like me to add to, or TOD development in general? The site, I think that's this motion, we'd go explore that there is private sector or not-for-profit sector in the site in particular. I haven't heard of interest in the past, but that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be if we put out an RFP. And yes, Mr. Laughlin was right in terms of we are looking for TOD development, mixed-use development, adjacent to transit stations, adjacent to LRT stops, because that is what will help create that return on investment in terms of the capital investment into LRT, but also helps us achieve our our climate goals in terms of people are able to live closer to LRT and use that as a primary mode of transportation to get around the city, among other things.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just to speak to this in my last 30 seconds, I appreciate the intention of the motion for a lot of the reasons that we just heard in this round of questions. I can't support it as is, but obviously we want to encourage more TOD, but we also need a lot of different kinds of uses to the land in an area, and especially because we have this facility, there's the timeliness issue, and then of course lastly is just the idea of incenting the development with that $14 million is kind of problematic for me. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. And colleagues, we have few items to deal with, but one item we must deal with today, and we have to deal with that, is the private item on the regional update. So please be judicious with your time, and because that item needs to be dealt with. I know Councillor Jen is to speak, Councillor Neck is to speak. Councillor Stevenson, are you to close on this? Okay, Councillor Rice, you have questions or to speak on this?
Speak.
Speak. And Councillor Salvador to speak or to speak? Okay, I will start with Councillor Jens.
Yeah, thank you. I had problems with the parkade from the get-go. I think this is a textbook example of sunk cost fallacy, that a previous direction was given to take the site and they're trying to continue the site with like first like. But as I said, it's building to current conditions. It's taking a 2018 approach to this problem when the parkade could exist for another 50 years. What is our plan to cap climate change at 1.5 degrees? What is the city plan for? What are we trying to do? There is metric yards of golf, not golf courses, yards golf courses. There are thousands of parking stalls available in the area. I used to live close to it. I used to walk to Ben's Meats just down the street from it. I know this area very well. The LRT is going to be great here. And the idea that we're going to be putting in a parkade just doesn't make sense. This opportunity for housing, for looking at our other priorities, is so much better. And I think when we think about the opportunities for city plan, what do we want to do? We all want to keep the tax burden low. And how do we do that? We incent good development. We make sure that this helps get the best use and the most wealth generated for every single site. And what is the wealth that would be generated by a parkade? It's marginal compared to any of the other uses that Councillor Stevenson has outlined here. We are responsible for the tenants of the building, but we, the city, are not in the parking business. We're not here to be building parkades. There's lots of available parkade. We just sunk a bunch of money into a bus network redesign with really, really good connectivity to this site. The idea that they have to park in a 3-story parkade right there on the site, I don't think holds merit. I think there's a lot of other options here. I love the idea of a student residence for out of town students, doing something like a furnished accommodation. I think there'd be all kinds of opportunity there from other providers who would want to look at something like that. And finally, every single decision we make, we need to look at through the lens of, we are in a climate emergency. Is this a climate decision? And I very much see that parking is certainly a want, but is it a need? And I think with everything else we're doing to try and rethink transportation, especially along the corridor, spending $14 million now on a parkade when we could spend less, have a surface parking for $5 million, or we could really be creative and do something here, like Councillor Stevenson saying. This is very, very exciting. So I support the motion, and I'm excited to see what we can do.
Thank you, Councillor Jens. Councillor Knack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to thank Councillor Stevenson for this motion. While I am the ward councillor for this area, there's probably nobody who knows this area better than her on this council, because she helped develop the Jaffa Place Area Redevelopment Plan. I remember the very first meeting I met her in 2012 at the Orange Hub. So she knows this area better than pretty much anyone. So I want to answer a few questions I heard in the debate. Is this an ideal spot? Yes. No, like this is literally across the street from LRT. If we were talking about where you would do any type of mixed use development, medium or high density, you would do it across from the street from LRT. That to me is absolutely a valid piece. From a city plan perspective, that makes a ton of sense to explore this. This is a corridor that we have identified as a primary corridor right adjacent to LRT, which would be home to substantial development. So I want to make sure folks keep that in mind. Just touching on a few things, and we're not, if we go out to do this work, which I think we should, it's not just this parkade that we're talking about. The city actually bought the entire parcel of land from 155th Street to 156th Street, from Stony Plain Road to essentially the alley. So when we do a proposal, we should be thinking about all of that land. And the reason we bought it originally is because we were going to do a 90-degree turn or a 45-degree angle turn of the LRT. So it had to go through that entire parcel of land. We have since changed how the LRT is going around that location. So the land that we bought for the 45-degree turn is no longer needed for the LRT, only a small portion of it, and that portion has been demolished. The rest of it will be future land that we can sell and use for mixed use development, or sell to somebody who would do that. So I would hope we would consider this as part of a broader body of work. And I know Councillor Paquette raised this point, but I do, and Councillor Jans just answered it a little bit, but maybe worth stressing. this is a conversation about whether we should leverage, do we want to spend $14 million on building a parkade? Or do we want to see if we can leverage that same amount of money, or maybe even less, getting an underground parkade and mixed use development right across the street from the LRT? This doesn't have to be a conversation about more money from the city at all, because I would be shocked if there weren't developers who would be very interested in building a mixed use development across the street from LRT, and being required to build an underground parkade to ensure that we do meet the tenant needs, which I think is important, and I don't want to ignore that piece of it. So just think about, really, you're weighing an option of, could we at least get more information as if we can get a better deal for our $14 million? I think that's a very valid thing to get more information on. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. There's a few other pieces I would just flag, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, but there was a lot of talk in the questions about the cost per stall of the parkade. And I should just mention, I mean, I've in the years I've been doing this, the most I've ever heard a developer state the cost per stall for an underground parkade is about $60,000 per stall, and that's typically going 3 floors down. So there were some questions by a number of members of council about the cost as shown in the report, and I hope that would be critically looked at as part of this as well, because it is surprising that our cost per stall is substantially more, upwards of 3 times as much as what we've ever been presented by any developer over my 8 years on council. So really, again, the question is, are you willing to take a look at this? I think it makes absolute sense. I think we can get far more value for that $14 million. And hey, if you don't want to spend the 14, we can actually put that in there too and say, what would a developer do if we just had the land? Because we've also talked about this, and this is something I've bashed home numerous times, is that every LRT station where we own city land, I would be fine with us selling the land for $1 if it meant developers would build mixed use development on those sites. That helps with safety, that helps with vibrancy, that helps with so many other major goals that we have. So I am very willing to explore this because I think there will be partners. One final comment again, I spoke with all the tenants there. I know, because, and that is one thing I will say as the ward councillor, the tenants do not care which way we go. What they care about is there in-term parking to solve their current issues. So that's the most important thing we need to address. And this motion actually puts a greater emphasis. And I would recommend, please reach out to the BIA Executive Director and he can help you find parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Councillor Rice.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mayor. And so I appreciate Councillor Stevenson, and then with the great attention, and also with knowing this word and bring this motion. I just want to share a few thoughts here. And for any capital project a city invested, and for the big scope of project change, and do we carefully look at the impact and for the scope change? And then specifically, and I heard so many Edmontonians talk about, and then how much money we spend on the phase 1 and for the project, and all of some the decision change, and then to the different scope, and then even without knowing how much follow-up cost could cost by this scope change. And then I think this is really concerns to me. This is one point. And second point about, if you look at Orange Hub, and Orange Hub actually is the center for nonprofit groups focused on offering programs and services in the arts, recreation and awareness and learning for our community. And then from our city plan, we do have a huge focus on the health city. And if we lost this opportunity and to keep this facility, and specifically during COVID-19, and we have so many needs for this facility, that is one event I went to there to attend it, and I said how that's like passion and for the community, for our residents to use this facility and to actually increase the quality of our life and to keep that to align with the health, safety, and perspective. And then also I saw the needs and for the parking, and is huge there, and is very difficult to find parking. And with that parking needs, if we look at the option administration provided here, and based on analysis, and we can say even, and we change the scope, and then the parking capacity still cannot meet our long-term needs, and for ART perspective, also for the tenants perspective, for the user perspective, and why without knowing the future cost investment, and we need to do this big scope change, and for the project already city spent over $10 million there. And I think from physical perspective, I do have this concern for that. And also what I heard over and over, and from Edmontonians and our city, like for the capital and infrastructure project, if we cannot and keep the promise and to the public, and we keep make the schedule change, we keep make the scope change, I don't know what that message send out and to our Edmontonians. And so with this reason, I appreciate the a great attention and for this motion, but I'm not going to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Salvador.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to take a second to thank Councillor Stevenson for bringing this forward, and just to thank everyone for the discussion that's been had. I will be supporting this. And just start by saying that absolutely recognize that parking alone is not the highest and best use for this site. I do have pretty serious concerns about the return that we'd be getting on our investment if this ended up being just a parking lot. I see this really as an opportunity to get better value for the investment being made, and for Edmonton as a city to show that we are being leaders in helping facilitate the type of development that we really want to see directly across from an LRT station. I also think it's a really fantastic opportunity to collaborate with industry members, nonprofit organizations, as well as existing tenants to help leverage this underutilized asset. So I'll keep it short, but thank you so much. Looking forward to supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Salvador. Appreciate that. Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'll also keep this really brief, but I do have a few points that I'd like to touch on. I was really, and I'm sorry about my kids in the background if you can hear screaming. I was really torn on this one, and I kept flip-flopping, but I've become very certain that I cannot support this motion. And for me, there's a lot of reasons that this comes down to. One is honoring the time of administration. As somebody that worked in administration, I know full well the amount of hours and work that has already gone into where we are in this phase of this project at this point. And so we're just talking about the 14 million. We have to look at this more holistically in the picture of all the money that we're spending in terms of even effort hours of our admin. And where are those effort hours going? You know, we haven't even had our council prioritization discussion. That's coming up in February. And I worry about all of the ways where we're switching direction on admin and pulling them in different directions prior to having that prioritization and being cohesive in that as a council, as one voice. I do worry about the risk of the inflationary costs if down the road we end up doing that parkade. I think a piece of conversation that's currently missing is that kind of idea of it has to be either or. I think we want a city that is friendly to all modes of transportation and all modes of getting around. And I think a big piece of that conversation has to be around people with mobility issues and having a ability to park somewhere really close to an LRT stop is phenomenal. So I do think that this parking is very appealing and would be very viable and used in the future. I also want to highlight that, again, this is a major change, and I echo what Councillor Rice said. It is a major scope change to this project. We had an opportunity at the fall supplemental budget, but I think the key for me is we are going to have so many opportunities as a council. We have 4 years to set direction, to set tone, but we cannot throw into chaos the work that's already been done. So for those reasons, I will not be supporting, but I am very intrigued by those other properties that Councillor Knack mentioned that are potential for exploring in that way. And I do think that the idea that Councillor Stevenson's brought forward was very interesting and very exciting. And I do think that's something that we need to explore for some of our other spaces and lands. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Stevenson to close.
Yes, thank you all. And again, mindful of time, I just want to say thanks to everyone for their comments and consideration. You know, I'll just reiterate, I think this is a great opportunity for us to build our vision of city plan and demonstrate leadership in terms of the type of city we want to see built. Not only is this the ideal location for mixed use, what we say that we want to have, again, I think we need to be doing what we say, not just saying what we say. This is a real opportunity to put action behind the words that we say about city plan and climate change. The most exciting thing too is that it is win-win. It allows us to maintain the parking. It allows us to provide housing, and it allows us to meet our city plan objectives. So I don't see any downsides. I don't see the loss. There may be a delay of a year or two where folks are having to cross the street to get to parking instead of just having to do that for a year, which would be the case anyways. And, you know, in the lifespan of this project, this is a generational project. This is a project that will outlive any of us. Yeah, about that. Maybe some of us might still be around at the end of its life cycle, but it's a long-term investment. And when I think about where I want our city to be in 10 years and 30 years and 50 years, I think we could do so much more to get us there. So I, again, would really encourage everyone to think one last time about the opportunity this provides for us to demonstrate our commitment to city plan, to show leadership, and to create the greatest value possible for our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Please vote.
eScribe kicked me out again. I'm a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. We're just waiting for Councillor Wright.
Councillor Wright?
Councillor Wright.
Right.
Yeah, mine kicked me out again as well, and I'm a no.
Thank you. We have all the votes, Mr. Mayor.
Display the votes, please. That is defeated. Okay, can someone please move that we bring forward item 9.4? Councillor Hamilton, you selected this. Would you bring that forward, please?
Yes, I'll move to bring forward item 9.4.
Point of, we never, you had a motion on the floor, like we had a recommendation on the Orange Hub.
Oh my gosh.
We haven't.
Yes. Sorry, thank you.
We need a decision from us.
Oh,
so I just
thank you, Councillor Rutherford, because I was so looking at the clock and they said 15 minutes left for the other item to be dealt with. Yes. Somebody move the recommendation, please, in the report.
So moved.
Councillor Rutherford moved the recommendation.
Wait sorry, just a second.
The original money to, the recommendation to release the money that the
So I'm very sorry, Mr. Mayor. The motion that I thought that Councillor Stevenson made.
Hers was to
okay,
continue
sorry.
to keep in abeyance.
So you can put the motion on the floor if you want, like.
Yeah, Councillor Rutherford is putting a motion on the floor to release the money.
Thank you.
Yes. Seconded by?
Second.
Councillor Tang. Okay. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Now, Councillor Hamilton, would you please move to bring forward 9.4?
Yes, I will move to bring forward item 9.4.
Seconded by
Second.
Councillor Paquette?
Cartmel.
Oh, sorry, Cartmel. Sorry, I'm still getting used to the voices. Yes. Okay, Councillor Cartmel seconded it. So please vote to bring it forward.
Councillor Jans? Thanks, we have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. And Councillor Hamilton, can you also move that we go into private?
Yeah, I'm moving. We're going into private, subject to Section 24 of the Advice from Officials of the Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Cartmel. Please vote to go into private.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes. That is carried. We'll give you a minute, Madam Clerk, to lock the door. Okay, so we'll give you a minute to lock the door. So what we have next is we have to refer some items to the next council meeting, Madam Clerk?
Could you first, would you mind terribly just receiving that report for information?
When we come in?
Yeah, before we do, and then just left on your agenda is 6-7. You've got 2 bylaws, 7173, and all the motions pending.
So on the.
We're online, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councillor Hamilton, can you move the report, please, or for information? 9.4.
Yeah, I'll move receipt of information. I was going to defer to Councillor Knack since he's the board rep, but we'll just
second it.
Councillor
Yeah.
Knack seconded it.
Yeah, and we're keeping it in private, subject to Section 24 advice from officials.
Okay. Please vote.
Yes, from me, Madam Clerk. This is Councillor Tang.
Display the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried, right? Yeah. So we have 6.7. We can send that over to next council meeting. Quickly, Councillor Rice, you exempted 7.3 and 7.4. Do you have questions on those or just for voting purposes you exempted?
Well, I have questions.
Okay, then we would have to it is 5:42. We are only 45 minutes ahead, over 5 o'clock. And I want to kind of really want us to think hard, not going beyond the scheduled times, because it's not just about us. It is about our staff members, and they are working really hard, and they schedule their life around our schedule, which is, everybody knows that we end at 5. It's okay, 15, 20 minutes, half an hour here under special circumstances, but we should not be making this as a habit. So I would say that we not deal with these items that are remaining. They would have to go to next council meeting.
I'm okay for that.
Yep, okay. Okay, and so we need a motion for that, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, if you're going to be referring 6, 7, 7, 3, and 7, 4, if you're just postponing them to the next meeting, if we could have a motion, that'd be great.
So there'll be 6, 7.
So moved.
So moved by Councillor Wright, 7, 3, 7,
Second.
4.
Second.
Sorry, I missed the second one. Who seconded it?
Councillor Salvador.
Council Salvador? Okay, Councillor Wright moved it, Councillor Salvador seconded it. Please vote.
Yes, from me, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
That was Tang.
Just carried.
No, I'm waiting for one more. I've got them all now, thanks.
Please display the vote. That is carried. So, notice of motions, that's next. Notice of motions and motion without customary notice.
I'll move that Councillor Rice be allowed to make a motion without customary notice, as stated in Section 32 of the Council Procedures Bylaw. Do I have that right, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
Second.
Seconded
And
by
this
Council.
pertains,
So,
yes,
sorry.
and this pertains to the council schedule, council calendar. Sorry, should have mentioned that.
Okay, Councillor Rice, what is your motion without customary notice?
Could we get a,
Oh,
please?
yeah,
to
we,
waive
oh,
the-
sorry, we need to, so moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Cartmel. Please vote to, so without knowing what the motion.
So apologies, I did share it in the Google chat, and we're just putting it up on the screen. As previously discussed with the committee and with council, there was a meeting scheduled for the city manager, city auditor performance evaluation committee on February 3rd. Due to scheduling issues, we need to reschedule that.
Okay.
But I don't have another opportunity to do so.
That's fine. I just need to know what it is because I can't multitask, so I don't check that chat.
Yeah,
Sorry.
for sure.
Yeah.
Understand.
Okay, that's understood. So please vote to allow Councillor Rice to make that motion. Please vote.
Yes from me, Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Councillor Tang. We're just waiting for one more, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Jans? We've got all the votes.
Display the votes. That is carried. Now over to you, Councillor Rice.
So I move, and the reason for this, and then thank you, Madam Clerk already explained why we need this motion. So thank you for everybody to support this, for us to move forward to get the evaluation project plan kick off and on time. So my motion is I move the February 3, 2022 city manager and the city auditor performance evaluation committee meeting be canceled, and any items be referred to the next meeting of the city manager and the city auditor performance evaluation committee. Then I move that a city manager and the city auditor performance evaluation committee meeting be scheduled for February 10, 2022, and from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Principe. Any questions? Please vote.
Yes for me, Madam Clerk.
Thanks, Councillor Tang. We have all the vote.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Now we are adjourned.
So I just need direction on what you're doing with all the motions pending, please.
Oh, motions pending, don't they automatically go to the next meeting?
Is that the decision, is that you're not extending orders, we're done?
Yeah, we are done. We are not extending order of the
Okay,
day.
thank you very much for that clarity.
Yeah, they'll go to next council meeting.
And I do believe there were two that were going to be removed, so it might be helpful if we just, if I got direction to just not forward them on. So that would be 8.1 and 8.5.
Yeah. So from my end, childcare motion would not be, I would withdraw it. And Councillor Jans, you indicated to withdraw the
8.5.
broadband, right?
Sorry, I'm trying to buzz in on eScribe and I can't. Yes, I'm going to withdraw the 8.5.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll lay everything else over. Thank you
All
very much.
right. Now we are adjourned. Have a good evening.